We have the latest on the ongoing lawsuit filed against Vince McMahon. CM Punk has provided a major update on his current injury, and two released WWE superstars have made their in-ring return. But first, be sure to subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss the latest pro wrestling news. But let's start by debunking various reports from the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter. Every Friday for the past God knows how many years, Dave Meltzer has dropped the Wrestling Observer newsletter, providing updates and reports from all around the pro wrestling world. With that said, over recent months and perhaps even years, it's become ever more difficult to look past Dave's clear bias in certain situations, as well as his tendency to report backstage hearsay as fact, leading to all kind of issues when these stories spread across the wrestling news cycle. Unfortunately for Dave, it seems that the most recent edition of his publication contains many proven to be false claims, creating an awkward situation. In the latest Observer, Dave would provide an update on the relationship between AEW and Mexican promotion CMLL, with him claiming that one of the terms of this agreement has led to unhappiness backstage. The report noted that any Mexican wrestler would be banned from appearing on the same show as CMLL talent, including Mexican AEW wrestlers, and he would write, "The deal with CMLL is that on any television show that their talent appears on, no other Mexican wrestlers can appear. It doesn't matter if they work for AAA or not, or did in the past. It's no other Mexican wrestlers can appear. Some of the prior Mexican talent is mad that Tony Khan agreed to those terms, noting that AAA never made a demand like that for AEW to not feature CMLL talent, even though they were warring in Mexico." Well, it wouldn't take long for Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select to debunk this report, with him even providing a recent example where an AEW Mexican wrestler appeared on the same show as a CMLL talent, which in itself proves that the report is false, and Sean would write, "However, AEW sources claim that this is outright false. They pointed to Commander appearing on the January 31st episode of AEW Dynamite when the group from CMLL appeared. Beyond that, Penta was also scheduled to appear on AEW programming this week, but ended up running into travel issues." This time, let's get to a report that was eventually pulled from the Observer entirely once it was proven to be false. Meltzer would discuss a segment that was taped involving The Rock and Triple H, where a WrestleMania match was teased, although it turns out this was a segment from 10 years ago, and the report notes, "Later, they filmed a segment which didn't air on television, but was all over social media, where Levesque and Rock went nose to nose and actually challenged each other for a match at Mania, although they would love to wrestle each other before a giant crowd at a WrestleMania without the idea it was this specific one. Given Levesque's heart issues, such a match would seem to be impossible, and virtually everyone believed that to be the case." As mentioned, the segment Dave is reporting on was taped 10 years ago, leading to him pulling the story from Friday's publication before issuing an apology on Wrestling Observer Radio, and here's Meltzer's explanation of what happened. "Somebody had sent me this clip of Dwayne and Paul Levesque face to face and this and that. It was actually an old clip. As soon as I found out, I took it out of the thing and am apologetic about it. It was a mistake. That aspect is just kind of a bummer for me. It was a mistake." Again, in the same publication, there would be a story that claimed that following the firing of TNA president Scott D'Amore, Tommy Dreamer had been promoted to head of creative, something that Dreamer himself has completely debunked. This on top of reports coming from both PW Insider and Fightful Select. Here's what Dreamer had to say on the matter on this week's edition of Busted Open Radio. "Oof, I'm so glad people know things about my life that I don't know. Everything is staying intact how it was before, with myself, Robert Evans, and Delirious from Ring of Honor. So there are no changes, and I purposely made sure that was a thing. So whoever reported about myself and my life, thank you. But as someone who has been doing the same stuff for the entire time I've been there, thanks for the promotion, I hope I get a raise with this fictitious position. Because if I was head of creative, Moose is losing the title to me, or whatever the next show is. Book myself on top, brother." Whilst mistakes can happen and journalists can never get everything 100% right, it makes you wonder if Dave Meltzer's sources are becoming less trustworthy overall, or maybe if he's intentionally being fed misinformation. Either way, hopefully steps can be implemented to see the Observer regain its credibility as a reliable news source. Next up, we have the latest on the ongoing lawsuit filed against Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon has found himself in the headlines in recent weeks on both wrestling news sites as well as in mainstream media. This after a lawsuit was filed against him that laid out a series of allegations of sexual misconduct and even sex trafficking, leading to his resignation from his position as chairman of the TKO Group. Fightful Select would provide an update on the situation this week, including some information regarding yet to be named executives that were mentioned in the lawsuit, albeit not by name. Whilst the outlet were unable to provide names for the individuals in question, they were able to confirm that the belief is that one of them are no longer with WWE, and the report notes. In regards to the unnamed executives that are being heavily speculated on, that remains a mystery to many within WWE as well. However, one source high up in the WWE said that they are of the belief that one of them had long been gone from WWE. One former executive that was named in the lawsuit is John Laurinaitis, somebody who has turned on Vince McMahon through statements made by his lawyer as of late, calling himself a victim of Vince, with him appearing to confirm the allegations made against his former boss are true. Fightful would provide some context as to when John decided to side against Vince, and they would note, John Laurinaitis has been outspoken by his attorney, which at least one source said they saw coming. The source, a long-time WWE employee, said that they effectively looked at Laurinaitis as McMahon's fall guy since the summer of 2022, but figured he had some sort of golden parachute that took care of him financially. However, the source said that the looming possibility of actual charges being filed is what many in the company saw as the main turning point of Laurinaitis on McMahon. The report also provides a few more details surrounding the Vince McMahon situation, with them revealing that WWE talent have not been briefed or told that they can't speak about the nature of the lawsuit in interviews or appearances, noting that several names have been asked about it publicly since. Fightful would also claim that there is another victim that has indicated to them that they are considering speaking out publicly about their own experiences in WWE, although they are unsure as to whether to speak to the media or not, whilst also pondering the option of taking legal action. Fightful would not add the identity of this individual, something that will be kept quiet unless they themselves consent to being mentioned by name. And next up, CM Punk has provided a major update on his current injury. CM Punk's road to WrestleMania would come to a screeching halt during this year's Royal Rumble match, with the once Mania main event bound star picking up a torn right triceps during an exchange with Drew McIntyre, ruling him out of action for a number of months. Whilst appearing at this weekend's UFC 298 event, Punk would be interviewed by Caroline Pierce of TNT Sports, where the Second City Saint would provide an update on his road to recovery and the expected timeline for his eventual return, and Punk would say, "You know, fingers crossed, yeah, I was going to headline WrestleMania, obviously now I'm not, but you know, it's sports, it's what happens to athletes. Mentally, I think it's harder because the physical pain is whatever, but I look at it like a bump in the road. This is an occupational hazard, it happens, and I'll be back bigger and better. I'm a clumsy idiot. I tore my left triceps about 2 years ago, so the right one was jealous. I'm like an old cobbler car, I'm like a 72 Nova, you know what I mean? We have to change some parts every now and again, so once we fix up all the parts, the engine's still strong, we'll still be good to go. We're thinking maybe 6 to 8 months, but I'm not really in a rush to get back to compete. I'm in a rush to get healthy, I'm in a rush to get better. The sooner I do that, the better I'll be when I come back." Elsewhere in the interview, CM Punk would note that we'll still see him around despite his in-ring absence, adding that whilst he can't wrestle, he can still run his mouth. And next, 2 released WWE superstars have made their in-ring return. In September 2023, many names would be let go from their current WWE contracts, including the likes of Matt Riddle, Dolph Ziggler, and Mustafa Ali, with all 3 of those names returning to in-ring action on the independent scene in New Japan Pro-Wrestling, or in Ziggler and Ali's case, in TNA Wrestling. With that said, another name from the September releases has also returned to action, this time for Wrestling Revolver, a promo promotion owned by free agent Sami Callihan. At this weekend's What a Show event in Texas, Elijah, the former Elias, would compete in singles action against Speedball Mike Bailey, showing off a new level of power and aggression between the ropes. Although his in-ring work appeared to go up a notch, he would keep many of the same moves and character elements from his days in WWE, with Elijah simply being an evolution of Elias. Another former WWE star that returned to the ring this weekend was the former Velveteen Dream in WWE, who would appear as a surprise for the Dynasty promotion in Albany, New York. At the show, he would wrestle under the name of Velveteen Man, issuing and winning an open challenge that was accepted by Alec Odin. Naturally, the appearance led to a lot of publicity for the promotion, but with that said, it wasn't all good feedback given the past allegations made against Dream, including that of grooming minors online. Whilst he did his best to clear his name in a recent interview with Chris Van Vliet, many questions still linger as to the nature of his communications with young wrestling hopefuls and his reasons for wanting to maintain a relationship with underage boys. And before you go, make sure you check out every WWE and AEW contract that expires in 2024.